products, but in a very innovative way. So for example, at the time NAD was started back in the 70s, you could buy a very high quality amplifier from Marantz or Macintosh. But if you wanted to buy something affordable, it's kind of like the equivalent of today's MP3 speakers. It was really pretty lousy stuff. And where NAD really broke out of the pack is that we had this concept of developing something that was affordable, but of very high quality. So we spent the money on the circuit design. We used the most sophisticated circuitry, and we came up with this product called the 3020. This is I think a 7020, which was a 3020 with a tuner in it. But this was a low power amplifier, 20 watts per channel. The amplifier cost a couple of $100s back in the 70s, yet it could outperform a lot of $1,000 amplifiers. It had a superb phono circuit that didn't overload like all the other ones did. And even though it only had 20 watts, we had this radical concept of designing an amplifier based on what it actually did. In other words, most amplifiers were developed driving a load resistor with a sine wave, and we said, well, that's not really how you use it. You actually hook up a loudspeaker to it and play music through it. So let's make an amplifier that can operate ideally under those conditions. And it didn't actually cost more to do it that way. It was more a change in a more innovative way of looking at how an amplifier could be created on a budget. So that's kind of the background of NAD. So, but you know,
quick question: NAD has always been from Canada, is that right?
NAD was started. Here's another place where we're kind of offbeat. So that type of amplifier didn't exist, but we had some distributors. Most of them were Acoustics Research, AR loudspeakers distributors, and many of them also distributed Marantz, which had been sold to Superscope back in the 70s, which was a Japanese company. And they actually decided, well, instead of making these very expensive, high quality amplifiers, we'll make some low priced, not very good amplifiers. And so all those distributors were like, I can't believe that what they've done to Marantz. And then Marantz announced that they were going to go into the loudspeaker business, and they went, horror of horrors, you know, we're the AR Acoustics Research people. So let's create a brand. And by the way, those AR loudspeakers were 4 ohms and about 81 dB sensitivity. So you needed actually a very muscular amplifier to drive them. So they said, let's make a brand. We'll create our own brand. And so this started in Munich, Germany in 1972. And you know, it was kind of rough going in the early years, but Lenbrook, who we are, was the first North American distributor for NAD. So, and at that time it was actually a collective. So it was, all the distributors got together and said, you know, they basically had to pay up front to finance the production. So it was a very kind of 70s thing. But the other thing that was really unique about NAD is they were the first, the way that they got this very high performance amplifier and could do it at a very low price was they went to Taiwan for production and created an alliance with a Taiwanese manufacturer, but put in our own NAD quality control and design. And we were really the first to do that. I mean, that's outsourced production has become obviously the way of the world, but in late 1970s, that was a really radical concept. So the point being that NAD's always been a very innovative company. We haven't always just followed the way everyone else does things. We always look for ways for making performance first. We often achieve those performance goals through simplicity. We don't overcomplicate the designs and put in, you know, features that don't really add to the sound performance. And we try to do it at a reasonable price, so the value is a big part of the DNA of our products. But you know, when we got into the 80s, suddenly the source of music was changing. Compact disc arrived, we had digital recording, and NAD jumped on the bandwagon. We had some very highly regarded CD players in those days as well. But then as we got into the 90s and the personal computer, the internet, and eventually the Apple iPod and later the iPhone, this digital revolution started to touch everything. And one of the things that we found was that our traditional hi-fi form factor and the traditional market that we went to was shrinking. The people that wanted a big rack full of equipment, there's always the enthusiasts, the hobbyists that love that, but we weren't getting that new generation. When you talk to people in the industry, so many of them say, oh, the first amplifier I ever had was an NAD 3020 or 7020 or something like that.
So
And
everybody says NAD, because I always knew it as NAD.
or
Which I
NAD.
always thought was really
Either-
cool because it's short for gonad, right?
Right. So if you're Australian, it's NAD. If you're European, it's NAD.
This is America.
American can be NAD. It can be either one.
Is it an acronym for something?
It is. It's for
Never
New
heard of it.
Acoustic Dimension,
Okay.
which again is one of those 70s.
For
So-
what it's worth, I remember at Tech Hi-Fi. Remember Tech Hi-Fi?
Yeah, sure.
They used to call it NAD.
So, but anyway, as we got into the 90s and into the early 2000s, the digital revolution really started to change everything, including publishing, which many of you are involved in. Certainly the way that we bring products to market. Our entire distribution chain was evolving very, very quickly. And we did a lot of soul searching as we came up on our 40th anniversary. And we decided that we would embrace digital technology. We weren't going to fight it. We could see it was the wave of the future. And we wanted to get ahead of that wave. And we invested a lot of money and time and energy into creating purely digital products. So even though we came from the analog world, we loved analog sound at the time, we could see that the tide was turning and that the world was going digital. And we came up with something in 2009 we called the NAD Masters Digital Music Suite. So this was a completely digital system end to end. So it's 10 years ago, quite radical at the time. The M2 amplifier was a project that we did with an outside company called Z-Tech Semiconductor. They had a patent for a pure digital amplifier that when we listened to the early versions of it, like the kind of the breadboard of it, it was very impressive. Like they had really solved one of the big problems of digital amplification. So we actually partnered with them to develop the first implementation of that technology. And since then, we've incorporated many digital technologies. So back in the old analog world, what you wanted to do was have something that was unique to you, that you invented, that you owned, that you could differentiate your product with. As we moved into the digital world, we found that that's not possible anymore. You have to work with other companies. There are standards for digital signal transmission and digital formats, and all of that's licensed technology. And of course, this whole part of the world in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, I mean, that's the lifeblood of this area, is developing these technologies that can then be licensed and implemented across a broad range of products. So we really embraced that and created this Masters Digital Music Suite. Now this was, if you bought this this stack of products, it was, about, I'm trying to remember what the exact pricing was. It was nearly $10,000 for
Not
this.
cheap.
Not cheap, but you could rip CDs, store them in a hard drive. We had a RAID-array hard drive there, so you could store all your music. Our concept on this was, let's take digital audio, where we can do high resolution and other things, but get rid of the computer, because computers are terrible music players. They don't prioritize music playback. So this became a computer that only did one thing: it played music. And so we've developed that concept. It led to the development of something we call Blue OS, Blue Operating System. That's And we created a brand for that called Blue Sound that really focuses on the multi-room distributed audio in a wireless network. So it's network audio. We developed an integration of all of the popular music services, so from Spotify to Tidal, you know, we've added Qobuz and Deezer and many others. What we've done though is we've taken all of this technology, and now 10 years later, we've put it into a very compact box. We've also added a lot of functionality to this box. So unlike the digital music suite, which kind of replaced the computer for playing music, the M10 does much more than that. And it does it in a very, very accessible way. So, you know, if you can operate a smartphone, you can operate this. And in fact, you can use your smartphone or tablet as a remote control to operate this. And you can see from the front panel that it's very simplified. There's no knobs, no buttons. It connects to your network. We've put a big focus on the screen on the front of the unit. It's all made out of a single aluminum extrusion, so you don't see screws or seams or panels. The top and front panel are Gorilla Glass, you know, taken from the smartphone world, and it makes a product that we think is very clean, very fresh, and can appeal to a broad range of people. It's not, strictly speaking, an audiophile product, yet it's in our Masters series, so it uses our very best state-of-the-art technology in amplification, D2A conversion, and of course the BlueOS operating system, which has grown to be a very, very complete and very stable system. So, you know, it's a product that's very connectable. We have things like HDMI input on it. So we can do a little bit of listening after this, and we have it attached to a TV over here, and when you're playing your music, you get to see the album art on the TV if you want. But if you want to watch TV, we have audio return channel through that same HDMI cable, so the M10 becomes your sound bar, except much better than a sound bar. You can connect, you know, legacy things like tape decks and turntables and CD players. We have digital inputs. You can stream from your phone. We have Bluetooth, and the Bluetooth we use is aptX HD. That's the latest 24-bit Bluetooth. And we have it configured in such a way that you can either stream from your phone to the unit, or if you're playing from the network, you can stream from the unit to wireless headphones or Bluetooth speakers. So it has a two-way function to it. And of course, we have Wi-Fi 5, which is dual band. It's the current best quality of Wi-Fi. We use standard network protocols, standard Wi-Fi, so it's not a separate special thing. And that's really important, you know, if you want to, here it just shows that we're compatible with all those things. I'm sorry, I got ahead of my slide program here. It's very accessible, so it will work with, you know, phones, tablets, desktops, both Apple and Android. We have separate apps for phones and for tablets, so we don't do what some companies do where they take the phone app and blow it up on the tablet. It's actually, we have completely redesigned it so you can utilize all of the space on the tablet. And same on the desktop. When you go to the desktop app, we expand it further because you've got more real estate to work with. And you know, that's really a skill set that we've had to develop over the years. It's a very specific skill set to do user interface, and we've worked with a lot of really talented people in that. We also have the ability to, we have an IR sensor. We don't include a remote control with it, but what we do is we have a learning function for remote controls. So you can take any remote you have, could be your TV remote or any remote you have, and just learn in the basic functions like skip and volume and mute and those things. So very accessible that way. We also have included in this box Dirac room correction, which adapts the system to the room. So again, not everyone can do a very symmetrical setup like we have here. Some rooms you might have to put a speaker over there, or your listening position might be off center. Dirac can adapt the product and the sound to that room. And those of you that are more technical, we've been talking a little bit about how Dirac works. It's an extremely sophisticated system that really we think is worthwhile. It's a simple one-time setup, and really improves the sound quality because in many systems the room is the thing that is creating the most distortion in the system. So that's an important feature. And you know, this isn't important to the hardcore audiophile, but it is to a lot of people, especially when you go into multi-room systems, the efficiency of it. So this uses 1/10 the power consumption of a typical traditional hi-fi system like we used to be making 20 years ago. So it's very, very efficient in many ways. It has automatic standby or power reduction. So if you're not listening to it for about 20 minutes, the front screen will shut down, the amplifier will shut off. We just leave it in what we call a network standby, so it consumes about 4 watts, but it's still attached to the network, so it will still show up on your phone, and it will, if you play music, it will play the music. Very, very efficient that way. It's also smart. We've integrated already Alexa voice control. We're in certification for Apple right now, so it's all set up for Apple AirPlay 2 and Siri voice commands. We're also working with Google on integrating their voice control. And the way we do it's a bit different. We've done it in a more universal way, so whichever one of those you've chosen for your smart home, we can respond to it. So instead of saying, Alexa, play Prince, you would say, Alexa, ask Blue Voice to play Prince, and it would do that. Now, this Prince album is only available right now on Tidal. It's not on Amazon Music. So if you have an Amazon Alexa, you can't get this Prince album. But if you have our unit with an Alexa Dot, you can ask Alexa to play the Prince album on Tidal, and we can do that. So the way we've integrated voice is, I think, a more sophisticated, more open way of doing it. We also have included other things. There are some shortcuts in here. We call them presets, but you can have, for example, a Spotify playlist that you like at dinner, and that can be preset 1, and you can ask Alexa, play preset 1, and it will play that Spotify playlist. Or you can select it from the app. It's, instead of digging down through 2 or 3 menu depths, you just go to preset 1 and it plays. So just a lot of thoughtful things like that. And then of course we've also integrated with all of the smart home control systems. So you can see the ones that we've already integrated with. It's all of the major ones, and that allows control from their control panel. Instead of using our app, you use their control panel, but you get most of that functionality. And we think it has astounding performance. So it's a high-res system. It's using our very best technology. It's got the ESS Saber DAC. For those of you that know DACs, that's one of the top shelf DACs available now. We're using our Encore amplifier technology, which is extremely low in distortion. It's an amplifier that is what we call load invariant. It works with any loudspeaker and has the same sound quality. A lot of other amplifiers will sound different on different loudspeakers, and this is very, very good in that respect. It's got a lot of interesting functionality to it. And of course, we also support MQA, which is growing. I think eventually it will be kind of almost a standard, like all of the major music streaming services will probably be adopting MQA at some point. And we have it now, so it's really superb sounding with the right stuff. And all you have to do is add speakers to it. And, you know, compared to a Sonos system or something, or a Play-Fi system where you've kind of got these all-in-one speakers, that's usually the worst part of those systems, is you're limited to a not very good speaker. Here, your choice of speakers can be based on your taste, what really sounds good, what is appropriate for your room, your environment. You know, whether it's an in-wall, in-ceiling speaker and you want it all invisible, or a statement speaker like we have here with the Dolly Rubicons. You know, we can accommodate all of that, and we think this is really what a modern hi-fi should be. So you can hook up your TV, you can listen to all your music sources, whether they're on your phone or on the network or in a CD player or a NAS drive. We can access all of that in the very highest quality. And it's, when the unit is shut off, it's a simple, discreet, you know, beautiful little black box that sits on the shelf. And so we think this is just a great approach for a modern hi-fi, and we're really pretty excited about it, proud of it. So, but this, when we say just add speakers, the other thing that we're showing tonight are some new PSB speakers. They're downstairs. If you haven't been down there yet, I recommend you get down and take a listen there. And PSB, like NAD, is a nearly 50-year-old company. They were both started in 1972. Paul Barton, it's the most famous company nobody knows about. Paul Barton has been designing those speakers and still is. And when you look at the speaker industry, if you're in the industry, almost all of the brands have consolidated, have been bought up by venture capital. The people that started the brands and made them famous aren't there anymore. You know, it's a really unique story that we still have Paul Barton working every day at the NRC, creating these products, and there's an integrity and an authenticity to it that I think is really rare and unique in this era. And one of the things we've been very famous for is affordable speakers. So we've had the first Alpha came out in 1997, and the idea was to make just a really affordable speaker that sounded great. And you know, we made one update in the early 2000s, and that's been going for, you know, over 15 years. So this is a pretty big deal in our world. It's a complete redesign. By the way, one of the reasons that we never changed it was A, it was really good, and B, if we touched it, we'd have to raise the price because, you know, we had, you know, dialed it in and you know, paid off the tooling, and we could just continue selling it at a great price. But this really is a completely new design, all new drivers, all new cabinets. If you take a close look at them, they're really beautifully done. You know, very high tech, so the tweeters neodymium magnets, ferrofluid cooling, it's an anodized aluminum dome. The woofer is a kind of a textured polypropylene, you know, with a new magnet structure, and very fine tuned to the box, so we get really good deep bass response, very low distortion. The cabinets themselves are internally braced, thick MDF board, nicely finished. We've got magnetic grills, which at these price points is a very unusual upscale feature. So we've really put a lot into these, and you can see there's a center channel, a couple of stand mounts, and a tower. So it's a short, sweet line, and the prices range from $200 a pair, $350 a pair, $600 a pair. These are really affordable speakers, and they sound great. So that's it. Yay! So if you'd like to go deeper on any of that stuff, I'm happy, or one of us here.
The room model.